Date there, May 27th, 2020 at 9 a.m. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Councilmember Purdock?
Here.
Councilmember Overton?
Here.
Councilmember Harris?
Here.
Vice Mayor Sluten?
Here.
And Mayor Kramer?
Here. Welcome, Mr. Goodale. And may we all stand for the pledge, please? And Councilmember Harris, would you lead us, please?
Sure will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We're going to dispense with the invocation for this special meeting. Just to remind you all, we are currently live streaming the meeting on Lake County PEG TV, live stream YouTube channel. You can submit your comments in writing throughout the meeting with by emailing the city clerk. Our email address can be found on our website. You can also submit your comments through our town hall portal, also found on the city's website. Okay, to begin. While we're operating under these new meeting guidelines, I will explain our meeting procedures. Agenda items will be open for public comment before final action is taken. Citizens wishing to comment on any agenda item should email the city clerk or submit their comment through our town hall portal. As I said before, comments received will be read aloud by either myself or a staff member during the agenda item. Because we are operating in a virtual setting, I will call on my colleagues one at a time to speak. After council deliberation, I will call for a roll call vote by the city clerk. If a remote participant encounters technical difficulties, which I guess is only you, Mr. Jones, I'll ask that we continue discussing the item and the participant can rejoin when technical difficulty is resolved. Again, if you are a participant who is not speaking, please mute your computer to prevent distractions from the current speaker. First thing will be the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the council or audience requests otherwise or staff has requested a change under adoption of the agenda, in which case the item will be removed for separate consideration. Any item so removed will be taken up following the motion to approve the consent agenda. And now after I have read all that, we only have one consent agenda item. So are there any, I'll ask each council member, starting with Council Member Overton, do you wish to discuss this item?
No, I'm fine.
Council Member Harris? No. Council Member Purdock?
No, sir.
Vice Mayor Sloten? No, sir. And neither do I. I will now take a motion and second to adopt the consent agenda.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as submitted.
I'll second.
I'm not sure which one. Council Member Purdock made the motion, and I think Council Member Overton was a split second ahead of Council Member Harris. So, Madam Clerk, may I have a call of the roll?
Councilmember Overton?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Purdock?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sluten?
Aye.
Mayor Kramer?
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, we will now move on to, we're not doing public comments, I take it. Public hearing, we have one agenda item, business item, which is discussion and direction to staff on entering into the purchase and sale of the former Austin Resort property consisting of, I guess we're doing this in two parts, huh?
Yes, I can explain, but yes, two
All right.
action
Well,
items.
I'm going to read this just once, but it's consisting of 4.74 acre redevelopment successor agency owned parcel 14061 Lakeshore Drive, Clear Lake, APN 039-530-50. Not sure that's 530, is it? They don't usually have three numbers on the. Maybe it does, I don't know. Yeah. So, okay, I will go ahead and read these separately because they are item 2 and 3. So, Mr. Flora?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So the two items before you are really related to one purchase and sale agreement covering both properties, but the properties are in separate ownership. So this is the former Austin Resort property across the street here from City Hall. One of the parcels, well, both the parcels were purchased by the Clear Lake Redevelopment Agency in 1997. Then in 2001, the city purchased one of the properties from the redevelopment agency. The city received a grant at the time to purchase the property, and then additionally do some demolition work on some of the old resort buildings. And so our city attorneys recommend it would be better because the redevelopment agency is kind of a separate entity to go ahead and take two separate actions on this. And so this first one is the 4.74 acre piece that is still owned by the redevelopment agency. And so we've given a little background on this before when the council agreed to enter into a letter of interest with Bailey Buildings and Loans for the purchase of this. But the two properties together would be purchased for $915,350. And you can see the list of sort of the city and developer responsibilities that have been laid out at this point. These are the same ones that were in the letter of interest that was considered, I believe, back in March. And so one slight change from that, due to the sort of economic environment out there, the developer has asked for 120 days to close escrow on this property. And I initially had some concerns about the economic environment kind of impacting this deal. They tell me that that's not the case. They just want to make sure they have a little bit more room to make sure that they can get all the funding together. This will be an opportunity zone project, and so this developer has worked with opportunity funds before, but there's a fund that has to be set up and so forth. And so, we think that that's reasonable. And then when we discussed the letter of interest with the council gave some direction that they wanted to make sure that if this project stalled out, that we would have the opportunity to get ownership of the property back. And so they've agreed to a 3-year timeline, that if they haven't started construction within 3 years of closing, that we would have the opportunity to purchase the property back for the sale price. And this is going to be a fairly complicated project particularly because of their interest in doing some type of large marina there, which will require both Fish and Game and Army Corps permits, which sometimes can take 2 years just for the Army Corps permit. So we think that's reasonable. And then I guess the only other thing, if I did kind of a breakdown on what the financial implications would be of this sale because it's in split ownership. So this particular property that we're discussing now, the redevelopment agency owned property, the proceeds of that would be split based on a formula for it's a pretty complicated setup, but I had the formula sent to me from the Auditor Controller's Office, who's responsible for distributing any proceeds. And so let's see, it's the larger property, 500 and some thousand, and so the city would receive about 89,000 of that piece once that's distributed. Just kind of as a matter of interest, the Konocti Unified School District receives almost 50% of the proceeds of any sale within the redevelopment agency owned area. So that's going to be almost 250,000 for them. And then of course, because it is city owned, the following agenda item, the city owned property, we would receive 100% of those proceeds, which should be around 350,000. So again, just as a refresher, the developer's intent is to do a destination resort, hotel, some retail, a marina, and probably several other amenities there. Our intent moving forward would be to get the purchase and sale agreement in place. This will have to be ultimately approved by the Oversight Board. We have that meeting scheduled for June 8th, assuming the City Council approves this. And then we will finalize the agreement with them, begin working on terms of a development agreement and any other issues that's needed to close escrow within 120 days. So with that, try to address any questions the council has.
Okay. Councilmember Purdock, you have questions?
Just a couple of points. I recall, but I don't remember if there was anything written as far as an agreement with the University of California at Davis regarding use of a portion of the Austin's Park or Austin's Beach for essentially a marine lab to do water studies. I believe that was a couple of years ago. You may recall when we were starting to look at the Austin Park redevelopment. So just putting that out there. I don't believe there was any agreements, but are formally adopted.
Not that I'm aware of. There definitely isn't anything recorded.
Okay. And then last, I know that former Public Works Director Herron, after completing some dredging in the Redbud Harbor area, we were looking at the delta that's formed off of the end of the creek right there and looking at what it would require to do some additional dredging to open that waterway up around that marina area. And I don't know whether that ever got concluded or what the status of his application was. But I think that would help the developer as this property sale moves forward.
Yeah, on that point, I don't think there's anything pending on that. I think there probably is a need, again, to do some dredging there, and probably the need for just some mitigation efforts in Burns Valley Creek to reduce the sort of sediment loading in that area. I think there are some potential funding opportunities out there. That, for example, that was something that we put some specifics in our FEMA hazard mitigation plan to allow potential FEMA funding for some projects there. That is something that we did discuss with the developers, and I'm sure that's something we'll continue to have discussions about, seeing if there may be some ways we can work some improvements into that project.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harris?
I have nothing for you.
Questions?
Nothing.
Councilmember Overton?
No, thank you for, bringing up Councilmember Purdock. I do agree that if there's anything we can do to help them out, make this project a good project, to move forward with whatever grants we can help or something, I would definitely encourage that. We want to see this project go. It's been a property that, as we said before, that's been sitting there for so long, and I just want to prove the point of once we started working on our park, the difference in our community. This is the reason why I pushed for the park to constantly be done, because this is a sign that shows that we care about our community, and this is why these developers are looking at us, is they're seeing that we're doing things, and so we need to continue to help make these projects successful. So I appreciate that you're doing that. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Overton. Vice Mayor Slotin?
I think this is an exciting time. I mean, the total acreage is, 7+, with a potential of, with I think floor area ratio is 60%, so it could be up to 200,000 square feet in this project, which is at a cost of, if you develop it fully, of, let's say, $200 a square foot. That's a $40 million project that could happen here. It's amazing. So if you look at another 30 days to get the buy-sell agreement things up, I think that's very reasonable. Also, a 3-year time frame. If you think about it, what process you have to go to, the whole environmental review, dealing with Fish and Game, dealing with all these agencies, FEMA, flood zone issues, etc. Exciting time. So I'm in.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Slotin. I was in on an initial meeting along with Vice Mayor Slotin and City Manager Flora, and I was excited by them. I'm excited about it now. I'm just like Councilmember Burdock says, it's been a long time in the making and will transform our city landscape. Along with Austin's Park project, it's going to make us, it's going to be the jewel. I'm really excited about it. One question, city considering the lease or license agreement, did they have any specific things in mind with this license or lease agreement on the, I assume that's on the beach?
Yeah, so I can explain a little bit about that. So they did ask if the city had any interest in selling the beach property. Told them, probably not, but what their interest is being able to have some type of agreement with the city. I mean, they're fine with, the public ownership, and that's something that I should mention. It is in the agreement, but because as expected, the community may have concerns that they've agreed with this project that there would be public access to the waterfront maintained, throughout this project. But their interest is kind of making sure that the beach property seems like part of the whole resort development. So a license agreement or some type of lease agreement would allow them to perhaps do some improvements on the public property that would make it look like one large development. So maybe replacing some of the short wall along the sidewalk, and maybe some pier improvements and things like that, which we've always envisioned that make it look like it's actually part of the larger resort, even though public access would be maintained. So that's about as far as we've worked out any details on that, but I think in the interest of really making this a premier destination resort on the lake, I think that's a reasonable thing to consider as we move forward.
Thank you. And also, they've agreed to maintain public access along the line out where the marina area will be. So that's good, too. I think that's some of the questions I have. We'll go to public hearing now. And again, we'll accept comments or questions via email and through the city's town hall portal, which City Clerk Swanson is manning at the moment. So, are there any comments from you? I've got the one to read here.
Yes, Mayor Kramer, we've received one registered statement via the town hall portal from Terry Stewart, who states, as a very close neighbor on Olympic Drive, I wholly endorse this project with the small caveat that traffic mitigation at the Lakeshore Olympic intersection must be a part of the project. I would favor a traffic signal personally, but a roundabout would be okay as well. And,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
okay, well, to finish, on a second topic, I think it's past time for the city to install plastic barriers at the City Hall public counter, along with all the other precautions that seem appropriate and open back up. Thank you. That's the end of his statement.
Okay. Obviously, Mr. Stewart hasn't been in City Hall for a while because the public plastic barriers have been up for some time. Somebody will inform him of that, though. All right, so that's all of no other?
All of the statements that we've received.
Okay. Then I'll bring this back. Close the public hearing, and I'll bring this back. Again, I'm going to ask each member if they have any final comments or questions. Councilmember Purdock?
I do have a concern, although I appreciate partnering with the buyer of the property, but the encroachment onto the Austin Beach area, I'd be concerned as we progress years down the road if that influence might restrict or make people feel restricted from the use of the beach. I'd just be very cautionary about that. I mean, as the resort might be putting out cabanas or other materials that belong to the resort, it might give the sense that it would be a private beach. And I would hate to see that our residents and guests would feel that they couldn't fully access the beach.
Thank you, Councilmember Purdock. Councilmember Harris?
You know, in my vacationing, I go to a lot of beach resort, mostly ocean beach resorts, obviously, but I think the concept of having a familiar place where multiple owners have access to a public beach and they actually utilize or make changes on that public beach and they work together to maintain that public beach actually does provide us a huge benefit, because that's a large beach, and we right now are in a position where we have a very lacking of attention for that beach. It's once was a place where you couldn't even go to that beach if you didn't go get your towel down first thing in the morning, because you would lose your spot on the beach. And now we have pretty much a wide open beach all the time. So I think anything that would draw more attention to that beach and to increase the activity on the beach, and if they were to participate financially in some of the upgrades, and even if they had something like cabanas, which I think is a cool idea, if they had something like that, but those were rentals, you know, we can make an agreement with them that, you know, things like that they own on our beach or whatever. But as far as allowing access to our beach to the public at all times, I think that's imperative, obviously. The only other thing that I've said from the beginning, and I would really like to see happen, and this could be just a concept that we suggest possibly, is that I would really like to see something in the overall construct of this that in some way represents and celebrates the Native American population in our community. And I know that, you know, it would be a very nice place to have some sort of an iconic statue or something like that, even if we were to fundraise for something like that ourselves. But I would just really like to see something that specifically celebrates the Native American aspect of our community. And that is it.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Councilmember,
Just, if I could just add a comment to Councilmember Harris real quick.
Sure.
I think that's a great idea. I just wanted to say that the developers, I would say, seem sensitive and interested in sort of the Native American history here, specific, you know, to the area and to this site. And that is one of the reasons why they have asked for the city to help them work with the local Native American tribes on this project. And so I think that's a great suggestion, and I think it's pretty likely to be part of the project.
Councilmember Overton?
I agree with both councils on both their ideas. I am concerned with public access. We are the only public beach in Lake County, and I definitely don't want to deter away from that. That's kind of what we can use to draw people here. So I'd be very cautious about what we do with our agreement with them on the beach. I like the idea they want to do something there, but I'm also very concerned that over the time, we're not going to be here forever, and over time, they may eventually take over. So I think it has to be pretty strict if we do that. So, but I agree about bringing in our culture. I don't think we have anything here really that represents the Native American, and I've always said that was kind of a shame that we don't. We have tribes that are part of our lower end community here. We have several tribes that are actually around us. So I think that's also a good idea, and I'm glad that they're willing to work with them. So that's.
Thank you, Councilmember Overton. Vice Mayor Slotin?
The cultural heritage of the Indian population here is, was one of the things I brought forward immediately when we met these two gentlemen. There's going to have to be some close coordination with the tribe, particularly Dino Beltrell, on this site. We know we've had some issues at the park when we were working there, so this is a very sensitive site to them. So I fully endorse that we have to have some coordination and some heritage for that population. And again, I need to come back to the economics of this project. I don't know how big of a site that we're really going to develop, but there is a potential for a tremendous large project, which would along here. So, I'm very excited about that, and I know projects like this take their time. If you try to get a loan right now for a bank, it takes forever, because the banks are so busy with everything else. And the process of getting a project like this through all the different agencies that we have to go through, forgive the time frame would be just a normal schedule in this regard. So I'm all excited that we'll get a standard project that will define the city for a long time to come. So I'm very excited.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Slotin. I had,
We have a do-over.
Can I have just one question since he's brought this up?
yes, you may.
The time frame, we said 3 years. Are we going to have something in there that can be extended or, because it's going to take as long as he was saying. I mean, some of these things do take, I've seen environmental studies and stuff, projects that like in 5 years, they're still not able to move forward because they're waiting for approval. If we're saying 3 years, is there going to be something in that contract that says that if, as long as they're in the process of and can prove that they are doing what they need to do, that it will be extended?
Yeah, I mean, we can do something like that. Certainly, if they're making progress and doing the best they can, we want to support them moving forward. So, I mean, the language that we had crafted at this point was just that we have the option to purchase it back if they haven't started in 3 years, but we can work on that a little bit more just to make sure that we have the most flexibility.
Because I have seen things go like 5 years and there's, before they ever get approved to like kind of start doing anything. So when it was mentioned, I'm thinking maybe we should have some kind of wording in there. So,
Well, I mean, hopefully that's not the case, but, when you're dealing with the Army Corps in particular, you never really know, so.
and that's kind of what I was looking at. The water part is going to be probably the most stringent part of this whole project.
And, I mean, we haven't talked about it lately, but in our initial discussions, I mean, I think they may consider, phasing part of the project and going ahead and starting some work and while they're waiting on the permits for the marina. And I think that's something that we would definitely encourage as well if they think it makes sense, so.
Thank you, Councilmember Overton. I did have a question for Chief White with regard to the police, their city responsibilities that they've asked for. Police Department to identify the property as a priority for law enforcement, visibility, and enforcement. Do you foresee any difficulties or problems working with that?
No, we don't see any issues with that. Obviously, we balance it against the other 10 square miles of the city, but given the close proximity to the police department, cars constantly going in and out, I don't foresee it as an issue.
Thank you. Okay, I, again, am very excited about the project, as we all are. I would like to see progress reports periodically from them as we go through this. Obviously, we want to keep the public's interest. Perhaps when appropriate, a concept drawing that could be released. Do you think that would be a problem with Mr. Bailey? And I would think it'd be in their interest as well. So that would be my only request there. And obviously, we want to do whatever we can to make that time less rather than greater than the 3 years to get it going. So I am ready to, I do have one question, City Attorney Jones. Since we have actually two motions, are we going to need to go through this same process of comments, public input, discussion for the second item, or can we lump that part of it together?
So the only thing I would do separately is ask the city clerk if there are separate comments for that one, but no, individual, you've already we've done the whole report. You don't need any more staff comment, but if there was somebody who want to make a member of the public who want to make a comment separately, they could, but I think she already read the only comment that we had. So I think you can go ahead and just open the next item and take action without any further process.
Okay, thank you. All right, back to item number 2. I'm ready to accept a motion on authorization to,
I move that we approve resolution, or the successor agency 2020-03, a resolution of the successor agency of the City of Clear Lake Redevelopment Agency approving a purchase agreement for property at 14061 Lake Shore Drive, Clear Lake, recommending that Lake County Redevelopment Agency Oversight Board to approve the agreement.
Second.
motion has been made by Vice Mayor Slotin and seconded first by Councilmember Overton. May I have a roll call, please?
Member Overton? Aye. Member Harris?
Aye.
Member Purdock?
Aye.
Vice Chair Slutin?
Aye.
And Chair Kramer?
Aye. Motion passes. And we'll move on to agenda item number 4, resolution number 2020-24, a resolution of the City of Clear Lake approving purchase agreement for property at 14071 Lakeshore Drive in Clear Lake. Are there any separate questions, Councilmember Purdock,
No, sir.
Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Overton, Vice Mayor Slotin?
No.
And again, no public comment?
No further public comment.
Thank you. Any comments from you, City Manager Flora, before we?
Sir.
Okay. So, bring it back from public comments closed, bring it back to council. Again, any discussions from any of the council members?
No.
I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I move that we approve resolution 2020-24, the City of Clear Lake, a resolution of the City of Clear Lake approving the purchase agreement for the property at 14071 Lakeshore Drive, Clear Lake.
Second?
Motion has been made by Vice Mayor Slotin and seconded by Councilmember Harris. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Councilmember Overton? Aye. Councilmember Purdock?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Slutin?
Aye.
Mayor Kramer?
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, I believe that's the last item we have, is it not?
That's it.
It is it. So, unless there is any further discussion or on any of these topics, I will now adjourn this meeting at 9:32 a.m.
See you guys all next week. Take care.
Thanks, Karen.
Has Willie been continuing to cut your hair?